international human resource strategies as you go through. It's really important about when you're doing international expansion that you really have a lot of these things down pat. Part of it is always having the lingo or the actual different terminology as you go through. Here are 4 specific strategies to pay attention to this because it's going to have a big impact as to how you're going to hire and promote people as you go through. So keep these in mind. This is one of those areas where you go through and memorize some of these things. And I know that drives you crazy because it drives me crazy. But that being said, know the names of it. Ethnocentric, based upon the home company's frame of reference as you go through. Make certain that you're really paying attention to the parent company's home country's frame of reference as you go through. Polycentric, basically hiring, promoting based on the specific contents in which a subsidiary operates. You want to hire locals and polycentric as you go through in the aspect of who's out there actually working. Sometimes it's regiocentric, where you're hiring, promoting based upon the regional context as you go through. It could be more than one country. Maybe you're covering part of Europe. If that you're covering Europe, it depends what area. If you're going to be touching France, Italy, Germany, you may want to sit down and grabbing people from each one of those things because it's going to help you know the market even more intimately as you go through. Geocentric, based upon the ability experience without considering race or citizenship, just who's ever there and whoever applies for the job. You really have 4 different strategies as you go through, and it's going to really determine the workforce that you're working with. And really, a lot of it is your choice and your judgment often that's left to you by your home office, but also the aspect as to what exactly market are you trying to do. You want to sit down there and hire people that actually represent portions of your market. Once upon a time, I had a job, my very first job out of college. I worked in all places of a fabric store. It was part of a big chain. At that time, it was one of the biggest chains in the United States. And fabric stores have really gone their way in the past because the automatic sewing machines took them over. But that being said, I walked into a store, we were 19th out of 20 in our region for profitability. Within 1 year, we went from 19 to number 6 out of 20 in one single year. The difference was the previous manager hired people based upon, I don't have any idea what the logic was. I went through, and as I had turnover, I started hiring my customer. My customer had a very specific, unique demographic, and I started hiring them. And they started selling more. They were sewing addicts. They loved and they were passionate about sewing. And all of a sudden, our sales started going up and up and up. We made changes, and the sales continued to go up, really because I was hiring my customer. You want to have a similar type of philosophy when it comes down to hiring. You want to hire your customer. If you're in Europe and you're going to be addressing the French market, you better have some French on your staff as you go through. If you're going to be selling in Italy, if you're going to be selling in Germany, if you're going to be selling in Ethiopia, South Africa, India, Sri Lanka, wherever you're at, hire the people that are there because they're going to know the market and they're going to drive business in because of the fact that people will notice who you're hiring, and also they'll have little tricks to know about the culture and the whole market as you go through. There's 3 different classifications. Here, I want you to know the 4 different strategies for hiring and training as you go through. Now, I want you to get the jargon down pat as to the 3 different kind of employee classifications as you go through. PCN, or a parent country national, as you go through. It's a citizen of the nation which the parent company is headquartered. Pretty much, this is really, it's called sucking up to the home office. Yes, that's not an official term, but that's really what it is. Make certain you bring those people in because of the fact that you want to maintain a strong bridge to the parent country national as you go through. A lot of times they can get things done quicker because they know the whole bureaucracy in which you're coming from. Host country national, it's a citizen of the country in which the subsidiary is operating as you go through. So you got PCN for where the company is headquartered, and HCN for host country national, and then a third country national, which you just hire somebody that does the job well. So TCN, PCN, parent country national, HCN, host country national, and TCN for third country national as you go through. So a lot of times you want to keep the jargon down pat as you go through. Decisions a lot of times from headquarters, They really sit down and keep that frame of reference as you're going through. On a polycentric staffing policy, remember what that is. Okay, it's really a multi-domestic strategy orientation using local staffing for host country operations as you go through. Host country national HCNs, they understand the local customs, culture, and language. A lot of times they require a lot of training because you almost have to sit down and train them in your way. They may actually know their way already in the same industry, but almost every company will have its own methodology in how they go about doing things. And sometimes there's a conflict of loyalty between the host country and the employer. And when that happens, you have to make certain they talk to you why there is a conflict between them as you go through and actually work that out. Don't let them blindside you, and don't be blindsided by it. Pay attention. If you have a question, you go walk over there and ask the question as you go through. If you're in charge, it's going to be your reputation on the line as you go through. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and make certain that you are in the loop all the time and talking as you go through. So a lot of times the international corporations, they have to manage employees from multiple nations. And if you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know it, go find it out and know it as you go through. So HCNs, host country nationals, third country nationals, all the time, making certain you're using orientation as you go through and hire the best people. But on a TCN, you don't always have cost savings as you go through, even though it may be labor savings. A lot of times, the official rule that we have for domestic hires is when somebody leaves and you have to hire them a replacement, it's going to cost you about 6 months of wages in addition to what you're paying, just to get them up to speed where the previous person was. So really, just because you hire somebody in from a third country and you're saving massive amounts of money, doesn't mean you're going to save a lot of money, because they're going to be less efficient, less knowledgeable about the customs and everything else in that society as you go through. So ICs here for regional-centric staffing policies, that they use that the approach is going to sit down and select regional employees for key positions. They'll already have that, but also keep in mind that they're going to want to have things customized more for their countries as you go in that region as you go through. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to save money, but you may have a product more appealing to the market by the time they're all done. But keep in mind, they'll want to customize it to suit the appropriate culture and maybe modify the overall corporate marketing strategy as well. The 4 strategies: ethnocentric, polycentric, geocentric, and geocentric. Know the terminologies, and also the terminology of what a PCN, HCN, TCN is. Parent country national is a PCN, host country national, HCN, and third country national, TCN, as you go through. Take care.